Welcome to this episode of Family Law and More, Pupillage Prep, tips and tricks for interview day. You join us on our special series about the journey you go on to secure pupillage. My name's Lisa Edmonds and I'm your host, and today I'm joined by three very special people. We have Eve Humphries, who is our practice manager here at Unit Chambers. We have Isabel Clarke, who is our current pupil at Unit Chambers. And finally, Roger Draper, who is chairman. Welcome all.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
So to kick things off, Rog, maybe can you bring our listeners up to speed in understanding the interview process?
Well, as I think we said in a previous episode, there's a sort of process that you follow with the BSB. So you get your applications in. They open on the sort of 3rd of January. They close on the 7th of February. And after that, Chambers undertake an interview process. And we at Unit normally have a number of steps to that process. So we do the sort of sifting of the applications. On average, we get about 140, 150 applications in. We whittle that down to a long list, and we normally do sort of first stage interviews. We normally interview about sort of 15, 16 candidates at that stage. And then we whittle those 15, 16 down to a sort of final 6 who come into final interviews. And the final interviews include sort of some written testing and advocacy challenges as well. And then there's normally a bit of a gap before sort of the 10th of May when offers are allowed to be made to candidates. So it's quite a tight process, but it can feel a little bit drawn out as well.
And for you, what's the purpose of an interview?
Well, it's about hiring the right people ultimately. And it's about getting to know those people. You know, it's not just about, whether you've got your law degree or how many moots you've done or how many mini pupillages you've done. It's actually about, what makes that person tick. So we want to hire, the right barrister going forward, but we also want to appoint the right person as well. And I think it's really important for us here at Unit is about, the culture and the fit and aligning that person with the vision, mission and values. So, it's a pretty thorough process that we go through, and we've done pretty well so far. We've hired some pretty good pupils, including Isabel here to my right.
And would you say there's a textbook approach to a pupillage interview in terms of structure, or do we at Unit do things a bit differently? You've mentioned sort of there's a first stage and a second stage. So do you want to just explain that in a bit more detail?
Yeah, so the first stage interview, obviously, that's a big challenge in itself, getting down from 140 people down to sort of 16 people. And, it's really about getting to know those people, what makes them tick, finding out a little bit about their interests. Obviously, we're interested in, family law and their competencies. And, pupillage is all about, it's your sort of apprenticeship. So, a lot of people have been through the lecture theatre, but it's about then getting them into the sort of operating theatre through sort of pupillage. So you want to get the right mix of skills, the right people. First interview is getting to know you. Second is a bit more structured because obviously you're testing around sort of, as I say, some written submissions, some advocacy challenges, and digging a little bit deeper into the sort of technical competencies of that individual.
So I'm going to turn to Eve now, because I think Eve, hi, you tend to be involved in the first part of the interview process. So what are you looking for?
Personality is what we're really looking for in the first stage of interview. Someone who we know will fit in at Unit, get on with everybody. With such a small specialist chambers, it's important that we get the right people. So that's the first thing I think we're looking for. Obviously, knowing a bit about family law is important. And so knowing that people have read around family law at the first interview is always something that I'm looking out for. So obviously, as a Chambers, everybody's involved in writing articles, and they're all always really well received by our instructing solicitors and, even prospective pupils. So when we can tell that people have really read around what we're about at Unit, but also a bit about family law, to me, that's something that always stands out at first stage interview.
And I don't know whether any of you have any sort of top tips for the listeners in terms of what they can do to prepare for interview, whether that's the first stage in terms of the paper application or the second stage, the face-to-face interview.
Yeah, I think there's normally 3 stages. There's the sort of interview stage, there's the during the interview, and then there's a post interview, and I'm sure we'll get onto all of those stages as we go along. I think for me, obviously there's some critical things that you have to do pre, during and post, but there's about 150 what we call non-critical essentials that actually, you have to do. And obviously Isabel's here because she obviously nailed all of those 150 non-critical essentials, but it's the basic things. So even pre, it's sort of researching your chambers, getting to know the people at the chambers, understanding the vision, mission, values of those chambers. But it's also stuff like, even the night before the interview, cleaning your shoes, making sure you've checked the weather so if you're not too hot or you're coming in drenched. It's checking the transport plans, making sure your nails are tight. There's 50 things during each process that you've got to actually nail. And I think, actually the preparation is key. We talked about this on a previous podcast, but if you can get all of those 150 little things and do them 1% better than everyone else, then you'll come through that process as Isabel did.
Did you have nice nails, Isabel?
Always got to have your nails done. Now, I think it's important as well if you just want to make a good impression straight away. So although a lot of chambers won't specify it's court dress or anything of the sort, just turning up with your suit on, with a smile on your face, you've got your hair done, you just look presentable and ready to take on the interview. I think it makes you not only feel more confident, but you just look more prepared for the interview.
You mean business?
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
And I think body language is so important because, even just eye contact, firm handshake, I'm not saying you sort of break the interviewer's hand, but, it's those sort of things that actually make people sort of stand out in terms of sort of confidence and body language. I think people actually, they prepare the written work and they go into the detail on all the information that they do. But often, they're nervous. Everyone's nervous at interview, but I think that's where the preparation comes in, whether it's visualizing, whether it's, running through all your notes before. The one thing, Isabel stood out at the interview because during her advocacy challenge, she was the only one who didn't do it without notes. Now, that showed to us that she'd actually spent a lot of time and effort actually going through that. She wasn't just on her 9th interview and it was just a usual thing. It actually showed that she actually cared and she prepared for that interview, and her body language and the way she delivered it was fantastic.
Can I ask, if you've spoken about nerves and body language and controlling all of that, but if a possible candidate has difficulties or issues because, for example, they may be neurodiverse or have other conditions, how do they manage that? Are they better sharing that information so they can come into an environment where reasonable adjustments have been made? Or are they expected to sort of, pretend that they don't have those difficulties? What would be your view, Eve?
No, absolutely. I think, being honest with us and letting us know that, for example, you're neurodiverse or like you say, have any other conditions, we want to make this interview process as comfortable as possible for every applicant that walks through the door. And that's something that at unit we're really keen to do. And we're, the world of barristers can be quite archaic. And I think something that we've always been really, really passionate about is that we're the future. So we want people to feel comfortable. Even if you come into our chambers, everybody has always said it's a really comfortable environment. It's a little bit like hotel-esque, And I think, would you agree, Isabel, that that's the kind of feel that you get when you walk through the doors at unit? You're not walking into an old dusty chambers where, everything's as it used to be. We're really progressive. We're all about making people feel comfortable, feeling welcome. So definitely, come to us. Let us know if you're having any problems, difficulties. We'll do everything that we can. We'll make as many reasonable adjustments as possible to make the interview process comfortable for everybody.
And how's that managed? Is that just a separate email or a telephone call to you to say, heads up, bit of personal background that I'd like you to be aware of?
Yeah, I think a lot of candidates let us know on the application anyway.
Yeah.
So that's something that me and Roger tend to go through the applications together, don't we, at first, Roger? That's something that we're always keeping an eye out for. But obviously, if the candidate isn't comfortable to put that on their application, then obviously just give us a phone call. Always ask to speak to me as the practice manager. However that person feels comfortable letting us know, an email, a phone call, it's completely up to them.
Okay. So maybe just tell our listeners a little bit about understanding the role of a barrister and the family law sector that we operate in particular. You highlighted at the beginning of this conversation that for you doing that first sift, you need to see some connection, some passion to family law in particular. So
Yeah,
just break that down a little bit for us.
Yeah, so I think obviously it's not essential that you've got a background in family law. I'd say it's preferable. I think, you know, a lot of people who have come into this, who have had that background of family law, whether it be being a paralegal or working in the court, I think they felt like they've had a little bit of a head start in terms of just like the lingo, knowing, you know, what's what, things like that. But again, it's not essential. And we have had barristers come through, Pupil barristers come through, who've had no backgrounds in family law and have equally excelled. So it's not essential. I think the day of a barrister can be long and tough. So I think just being prepared for that, you're obviously best placed to, you know, to discuss how long a day can be. But no 2 days is the same. So just always being prepared for every eventuality. You could be in Liverpool in the morning. You could be 4 hours away in the afternoon. Always have snacks in your bag because you'll never get time for a lunch. I mean, people used to eat out the vending machine in the Vernon Street for years, didn't they? Because you're not really going to get a lunch break most days.
So obviously something we do to make sure everyone is loaded with snacks is as our pupils progress to that practicing period. So their second six, they get gifted a survival kit, usually filled with energy drinks.
Tights. Paracetamol.
Don't know what was in yours, Isabel.
Yeah, a range of things. I'm always one for coffee, energy drinks, maybe a bottle of wine or two. So it's got the essentials in there. Also some snacks, as Eve said, it's important when you're on the road. Got to keep yourself fueled up. So it's just a nice personal touch when you're getting on your feet to just know you've got that support there. And it's just a really nice supportive environment, as Eve said earlier.
And I think especially in your second six, and you're often all around the country sometimes. You'll go to some court arenas which have literally nothing
facilities,
nothing nearby. So you just got to be prepared for that, I think. And yeah, just like long days travelling sometimes as well. I mean, obviously we have a number of offices now, don't we? Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds. So, you know, we're mainly in those areas, but there are courts far away that people get sent to. It's kind of an initiation process when you're a pupil, you get sent far and wide. So
yeah, tend to play top trumps, don't we, of certain court centres, but I suspect that's a podcast episode in itself.
Coming up on Family Law and More, Lisa, Rog and Eve will be joined by Fiona Flemington to discuss what to do if it is unfortunately a no this time in pupillage. Join us then.
Let's move on to the interview day itself. And Rog, you've identified how candidates can prepare in terms of those non-critical essentials, but just talk us through sort of expectations as that future pupil walks through the doors of unit chambers.
Well, as I say, hopefully we're quite a sort of relaxed sort of chambers in terms of the way we sort of look after people. But there's still an interesting process because you've still got to walk through the doors. You've still got to sign in and meet the team on reception, which is also important because how you treat those people is really important because they may or may not feed back. We have our current pupils and the support team involved in the process as well. So when the pupils come in, they're sort of meted and greeted. That's not a sort of tripwire in any way. But again, it gives, we do ask the pupils and the support team feedback on what they thought about the candidates and, whether they were relaxed and, what was their body language like and so on. So that's even before you walk through the interview door. There's a number of touch points along the way. And, I know I've seen it myself where I've sat in receptions and people have come in for interviews and treated the sort of security people or the receptionist pretty badly. Now, that's not a good sign in itself because I think you've got to respect everyone who's involved in that process. And I get people are nervous and so on. But I think, you've just got to actually prepare for that whole process of even before you walk through the door, you're going to meet some people and you're going to prepare. And obviously when you come in, normally we get straight into the advocacy challenge. So I think getting in that mindset and again, getting off to a good start with the advocacy challenge because the ball's thrown at you straight away. You're not fired with a load of questions. You're on the spot straight away with that advocacy challenge. It's timed, it's 5 minutes. And again, just prep, rehearse, visualize. It still amazes me that so many people I'm quite lenient in the interviews because I say 5 minutes, but sometimes people are still going on after 7 or 8 minutes, which again, just
sign of a good lawyer.
just a sort of time
minutes.
effect as well. Yeah. So, that's the first thing. As you get into the interview process, we start off with, actually, I think are quite difficult questions, which is tell us a bit about yourself. And again, so many people start going off, well, I was born in 1980 and then in 1983 and then in 1985. And then you're like going, actually, what we're looking for is short, sharp, punchy answers.
You like things in threes, don't you?
Yeah, there's 3 things you need to know.
Well, let's turn it around.
So
let's pretend you're coming in for an interview. So, hi, Rog, tell us a bit about yourself.
So my name's Roger, 53 years old. There's 3 things that you should probably know about me. 1, I'm really passionate about business, and I'm involved in a wide range of businesses, from law firms to insurance companies to sport. I'm passionate about change and disrupting the status quo in those businesses. And I'm also really passionate about sport as well. So, I play a lot of tennis, go to the gym and so on. And those 3 things actually sort of define a lot of the things about me.
Shall we hire him?
No, but I think that thing about just staying focused, because it's so easy to just like lose your focus and ramble on. But the tell us about yourself is such a difficult question.
No, I agree. I think it's the hardest part of the interview. I think there's a lot of pressure to stand out at that point.
Yeah. And what would you say, Eve, in terms of managing nerves? Because as Roger's described, you're walking through the door, you're meeting all these new people, your heart's going to be racing. You come into the interview room, the spotlight is on you. Yeah. You're doing this advocacy exercise that you've prepped, you've rehearsed for, but actually there's a risk nerves get the better of you. And then as soon as you've done that, you're straight into these really tough and sort of deep dive type questions.
I do think that over preparing, especially on the day, is probably the worst thing that you can do. I think the morning of the interview, just try and take a step back from it. That sounds a bit crazy, but I always remember when we were in the other offices in St. Paul's Square, I bumped into our consultant barrister, Bella Tate, who obviously went through pupillage here at UNIT, and she was sat, and I hope she won't mind me telling people this, she was sat in Bean with headphones on, listening to some music, just having a coffee, just with a face against the wall almost. Maybe it was a window, I'm not really sure. But she was just completely in the zone. And afterwards she said, oh yeah, I was just kind of, I had a couple of flashcards, but I was just sat there listening to music. It really calmed my nerves. I went into the interview feeling good. She was first up, and I think sometimes that's a pressure as well. You're first at the day, so you've got to make an impression, haven't you? So definitely, and I think from speaking to the pupils, past, present, barristers, post interview process, it's just not getting in your own head on the morning of the interview. I don't know whether you agree with that, Isabel, whether you just take a little step back from it that morning.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's difficult, but you've got to just try to not put too much pressure on yourself and just go into it with no expectations is what I tried to do.
I think all the preparation should be done by that point. You've known that about the interview for quite a while, so all that preparation should already be there. So I think, that's definitely my number one thing, I would say.
Yeah, and performing under pressure is, there's experience, but there are things that you can do to help you perform under pressure as well. And again, and particularly if you want to be a barrister, you are a performer ultimately. You've got to be hot on all your written skills and so on, but you've got to be a great advocate as well. So rehearsing to perform under pressure is a really important skill, not just at interview, but in your future career as well.
Okay. And then the advocacy exercise that we do, Isabel, what's your feedback on that?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I know some chambers will do it slightly differently. So they'll ask you to get there a certain amount of time before the interview and give you sort of a surprise advocacy exercise. But with UNIT, you've got the time there to really prepare it and to make sure that everything that you're saying is correct and is right. So I felt myself as if no one was trying to trip me up. I'd had the exercise for a week, maybe even longer than that. I can't really remember. So you've got the time to prepare it. You're ready. As you could say, you get it done straight away as soon as the interview starts. So you know exactly what's going to happen, what you're going to say. You can really well prepare for it. So I found that to be really helpful. And I think it was a good way of putting across my advocacy skills at the start of the interview. I didn't think it was sort of, designed to put you on the spot or to trip you up in any way.
And if you've come through bar school, was it a similar experience to doing an advocacy exercise at bar school?
Yeah, I think it was more well-rounded. So with having the written element and then the oral advocacy element as well, it was like more akin to actually running a case as a barrister than sort of the little snippets that you get in bar school. But it wasn't anything overly challenged. It wasn't designed, to be only completed by someone that's got extensive family experience or advocacy experience. I think it was just designed to show that you've got the right foundations there.
I think that's right, because for me, it's not the most important part of the interview. It's the second part, and it goes back to what Eve and Roger was saying earlier about getting the right person on the team. That's really important.
Well, I think that first advocacy exercise is never really law related. It's always more about maybe unit as a chambers or, a different topic, because me and Roger aren't experts in the law. That's where the second part of the interview process, and you have your barristers who are really, they're the ones analysing your skills in the area of law. Me and Roger just want to get to know who you are. Are you passionate about unit as a set? That's really important to us. So that's the first, Yeah,
and I think when, again, at the interview, because it's a bit of a journey and it's a bit of a test. And, I think, the key bit of advice I would always say to people during that 30, 40 minutes, you've got to try and keep the same energy levels when you came into to the end. And we take people on a bit of a swirl, because you start off with normally the tell us about yourself, what makes you tick, tell us a time when you failed and recovered. Those you can sort of prepare for. We then normally go into the sort of technical law questions. And again, this is an area where you've got to be up to speed, both in terms of some current things that are going on in family law, also be personal about chambers. Barristers love hearing about themselves, so do chambers, so when they say, oh, Lisa, I've been following your Court of Appeal case, or, Callum, you did really well there, on that appeal, or, I see the team hikes and the trips to Bongo Bingo, so make it personal to chambers, because it shows that you've done your homework and you've researched that. I think the trickier ones is where we try and throw in, like everyone will do, which is the sort of, you're looking for a bit of agility from the candidates, where we throw in a few curveballs. So they'll be sitting there saying, oh, well, I've got that out of the way, I've done the law. And then, you throw in a question like, why shouldn't we hire you? And it's really interesting, because you've got to really think on your feet then, because you're taking on this journey, and then you're getting a question like, why shouldn't we hire you? Or teach me something. And those sort of questions throw, because it shows you've got to then think on your feet, just as you do as a barrister. So quite often people are caught out by those questions, because there's then because they haven't prepared mentally for those questions, there's then a 20-second pause, which is fine, whilst they recover and regroup as well. So that journey and keeping agile through and being aware, ready for the curveballs is really important as well during the interview.
I think as well, not being afraid to say, I'm not actually too sure on that, but I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
And then actually following that through and coming back to us, with an email, with a document, I didn't know the answer to this question, but I've actually gone away, I've researched it, and here's my answer. I think we always find that to be quite an impressive thing that people do post-interview.
Yeah, because you're also looking for a bit of emotional intelligence as well on some of those questions, because you want to sort of dig a little bit deeper, because people will tell you what you want to hear, but you actually want to find, and actually always a good question is not tell us about yourself, is just, if I went to meet your family and friends, what would they tell me about you? Because you've got to think about it differently. So you've got to have a bit of self-reflection in some of those sort of questions as well.
Disclaimer, I don't mean say I don't know to every question that we ask.
What about you, Isabel? Was there a question that still gives you sleepless nights?
There was quite a few. It's really off, I think, honestly. But, that's why I think for myself, it's important not to over-prepare and don't try and script any answers to questions that you think you're going to get asked, because ultimately you have no idea that chambers might ask you nothing about the law, or they might be solely focused on the law. So don't get yourself in a fixed mindset of, oh, they're going to ask me, why do you want to be a barrister? Why do you want to do family? Why do you want to work here? Of course, they're topics that are probably going to come up, so have a little think about them, but don't have a structured interview in your head that you've prepared for. Just be ready to respond and be reactive to whatever the interviewer's expecting of you.
And what's it like once you've done all the interviews and then you're in that waiting period and the phone call hopefully on the morning of, is it the 5th of May this year? 4th of May, usually beginning of May, isn't it?
10th of May.
10th of May. So what was that experience like for you, Isabel, waiting?
Yeah, it felt like a really, really long time between the interviews and getting the call. But I just thought, there's nothing I can do about it now. I've been through the process. There's no point dwelling on it. I'll just have to wait and see what happens. And I think that's a good way of just managing your own stress levels. So it was lovely. Obviously, Lisa, you gave me the call on the morning. So that was great. It's a nice personal touch as well to have a phone call from someone to give you some real feedback rather than just an email or something. I was anxiously waiting by the phone for that. So it was a long time, but I think you can move on. You can forget about it unless you.
Yeah.
And Rog, what about it from a Chambers point of view? What tends to happen once all the interviews are done?
Well, I think the one thing, and I think the legal sector can learn a little bit, because we do hear a few horror stories from pupils. We have a very personal touch. So even after the first interviews, we ring all the 16 candidates. Now, obviously, there's 6 nice phone calls, but there's 10 not so nice phone calls.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important that you actually give some feedback during that time. And it's interesting because I think now with pupillage, we talked about that real world experience, particularly in family law. A lot of people were finding that actually don't come through their first year of interview process. In fact, Isabel, you didn't make the second interview. Yeah. We interviewed you first time around, but actually we gave some feedback saying, actually it's a question of sort of not yet, you're going to be a barrister, but actually go and get some experience as a paralegal. Kelsey did the same, went off for a year, did a paralegal. And actually, the second year, they come back so much more confident as well. So I think for us, the personal feedback definitely helps, whether you're successful or you're not successful. And I think, we do hear a lot of people go, well, we didn't hear anything. It was like radio silent. We didn't hear anything. Or we got an email and so on. So I think if we're going to improve standards across the sector, I think that's a really good sort of perspective, that you actually keep in touch with those people who don't make it, because they're going to come round full circle as well. And we also hope that they're going to get pupillage at another chambers as well. I'm actually, one of the things what I'm proud about is nearly all the people we interviewed, certainly in the final interview stage, if they didn't get pupillage at unit, they got pupillage elsewhere. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's definitely something to celebrate. Okay, well, I think that nearly brings to a close this episode. Rog, I don't know if you just want to wrap up with some key takeaway points for our listeners.
Well, again, comes down to preparation. Make sure you get those 150 non-critical essentials nailed. Always be yourself. And also, don't be afraid to, some people think they're coming into this and they've got to conform to being a barrister. But actually, what's also important is the stuff you do outside of the law as well. Whether you're Isabel Hawkins was, backing dancer to bass hunter, Bella Tate is just competing in the world sort of disc golf championships, because those are important skills to bring to the party as well. So non-critical essentials, follow your passion, be yourself, and, don't be afraid to, to show yourself and the stuff that you do outside of family law.
And so to all those listeners that are about to embark on interview, very, very best of luck. And if it hasn't been your time this time, then keep going. So before we close, Eve, this is your first podcast with us, but you do know about Roll That Dice.
Okay.
Or had you forgotten?
Well, I was saying I do listen to podcasts a lot, and I always listen to them when I go to sleep. And I said when I came back to work, I said to the guys, I was listening to a podcast the other night, and next minute Isabel Hawkins was in my bedroom when I woke up at 2 in the morning. Just Isabel's voice was like, it was very scary.
You have the dice. Give it a roll.
Question from a listener. Rog, you got them?
So we've got a question in, which is, what's your favourite interview question to ask?
I would say probably, what do you dislike most about yourself, or what is your worst trait? I think people come into this interview process really hyping themselves up, understandably, but I think that really just throws a curveball, and people have to then, well, like Roger was saying before, pause and think, oh, actually now I've got to reveal the worst things about myself to these people who I want, and I want them to give me a job. So I think it's a scary thing to do. So that's definitely probably my favourite question.
Because what you just like seeing the fear and the colour drain.
Yeah. A lot of people, a lot of people say, I over prepare. Because they think it's like, oh, it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I think we like when people say like, I'm just really annoying. Like, you know, just
keep it real. Yeah. Keep it real.
Like, I bite my nails. People hate it. Something like that, you know?
Interesting.
So,
Okay, well, thank you to Eve, Isabel and Rog for joining us today. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on this episode. Please remember to subscribe, rate and review this podcast. And we look forward to welcoming you back to our next episode on Family Law and More.